The Vegas Golden Knights are statistically one of the most successful franchises in the history of the league. They lead all NHL franchises in win percentage at a .627 point percentage, which is an average of 103 points in an 82-game season. Sure, they might have over 3,000 less wins than the next team, but it's still impressive the success that Vegas has found after entering the league through an expansion in 2017. Yep, it's a small sample size, but they still have made a huge impact on the NHL. In 7 seasons, they have made the playoffs 6 times, the conference finals twice, and the Stanley Cup Final twice, winning the cup for the first time in 2023. But they found success with huge help to a loophole found within the NHL rulebook. Long-term injured reserve, or LTIR, allows NHL teams to remove injured players from their active roster if they will miss 10 or more games. The team can then fill out their roster and replace that player using his salary. So, for instance, if a player is injured with a cap hit of $5 million and he's put on LTIR, the team can then exceed the NHL salary cap by $5 million to add players to their roster, whether that be 5 different players or just 1. Now, this seems like a kind gesture by the league to allow NHL teams to recover from injuries that can hold their players out for a long time, but teams have found a way to exploit this rule. When a player comes back from LTIR during the regular season, the team must have a cap under the salary cap. However, if the player is held out until the playoffs, the team can exceed the salary cap. This is because the NHL playoffs do not have a salary cap. So, players are often held out on LTIR for the whole season, then they're magically set to play in Game 1 of the playoffs. The first notable use of this exploit was in 2015 with the Chicago Blackhawks. The Blackhawks used this loophole when they placed winger Patrick Kane on LTIR. After being struck by a cross-check from Florida defender Alex Petrovic, Kane sustained a fractured left clavicle, which saw him face a 12-week recovery time. With Kane's contract now on LTIR, the Blackhawks splurged during the trade deadline. They acquired Kimmo Timonen, Antoine Vermette, and Andrew Desjardins to bolster their forward depth. They were also able to keep Patrick Sharp around on the team, as there were rumblings before the trade deadline that the Blackhawks were considering to trade him and his $6 million contract, but with the freed up cap space, there was no need to move him. After Kane rejoined the team in the postseason, Chicago won its 3rd championship in 6 seasons, with Kane recording 23 points in 23 games, along with scoring the dagger in Game 6 of the Stanley Cup Final against Tampa Bay. The Blackhawks then lifted the Stanley Cup, being $1.6 million over the league's salary cap of $71.4 million. The next notable abusers of the rule were the Tampa Bay Lightning. Following Chicago's blueprint, the 2021 Tampa Bay Lightning had their star winger Nikita Kucherov miss the entire regular season and return for the postseason. Kucherov started having hip problems in early December of that year and was hoping to avoid surgery. However, after trying various treatments, it became clear that Kuch wouldn't be able to play through the injury for the entire season, even with the shortened schedule of 56 games. So he got the surgery and hoped to return to the team before playoffs, and that he did. After missing all 56 games of the season, Kucherov was suited up to play Game 1 of the playoffs. He then went on to play 18 minutes a night, scoring 32 points in 23 games, leading the playoffs by 9 points. He helped the Lightning win the Stanley Cup with a final cap hit of $98.8 million, over $17 million more than the cap. In 2023, Vegas was the next team to use the loophole. On February 20th, 2023, just 2 weeks before the trade deadline, Mark Stone, Vegas's captain, was placed on long-term injured reserve after suffering a back injury. Vegas then used Stone's LTIR cap space on forwards Ivan Barbashev and Teddy Bluger, and an experienced playoff goaltender in Jonathan Quick. These pieces helped Vegas in the late stretch of the season as they finished first in the Western Conference. Then, just before Game 1 of Round 1 against the Winnipeg Jets, Mark Stone was activated off of LTIR. Stone then had 24 points in 22 games and shook Gary Bettman's hand as captain of the Vegas Golden Knights, who ended the season with a cap hit of $96.5 million, $14 million over the cap. Now, this leads us to this year, where Vegas is doing the same thing in the same exact way. Mark Stone was placed on LTIR on March 4th, 2024, and was ruled out for the remainder of the regular season. Using his LTIR money, Vegas balled out at the deadline. It started with the trade for 20-goal scorer Anthony Mantha. 2 days later, Vegas made a blockbuster move, trading for star defenseman Noah Hanifin. Then a couple days later, they made an even bigger move, trading for San Jose's star forward Tomas Hertl. After making those moves, Vegas clinched the playoffs with the second wildcard spot in the Western Conference, and Mark Stone was activated off LTIR after suffering a spleen injury. And of course, he scored the first goal of the series for Vegas, a team which was $9 million over the salary cap. With so many instances of exploitation of this rule, you must be thinking, what has the NHL done to stop this? Well, virtually nothing is the answer. At a meeting in March, some members of the GM's executive committee talked to Gary Bettman and Deputy Commissioner Bill Daley about whether LTIR should be used for the NHL salary cap. Although they weren't planning to talk about it at first, they ended up discussing it for a bit. Bettman said he felt good about the current system, and that the league is keeping an eye on players on LTIR to make sure they're actually injured. He also acknowledged that there aren't any cap restrictions during the playoffs, so there is a chance that teams could bend the rules. Bettman and Daley both seemed happy about how things were going, but they said they'd talk to the Players Association if there were any more problems. And funnily enough, after the 2015 Stanley Cup Finals and losing to the Chicago Blackhawks, the Tampa Bay Lightning proposed a vote to end the salary cap loophole. No other team joined the clause, so I guess if you can't beat them, join them. NHL fans have a split view on the loophole. Many fans think that the rule is dumb and should be changed because it's an exploitation of the salary cap. But others think that it's okay for that same very reason. It's a loophole that every team can use, so it's an even playing field across the league. But as of right now, it seems that the NHL doesn't plan to change the rule anytime soon. Personally, I think the rule should be changed. Yes, it's technically legal, and yes, every team is able to do it, but it just doesn't feel right. Having a team lift the cup with a $100 million payroll just seems a little scummy. There should be a system in place where the team's dress skaters for the playoffs need to be within the constraints of the salary cap. But as for now, there's nothing we can do, and teams will likely continue to exploit the loophole. So should the LTIR loophole stay a part of the game, or should the NHL change its rulebook?